Hey, welcome to Collaborwalkie. I am not Jim Benson. He gave me a bunch of things I'm supposed to say, but they're too dorky for me to read. So I'm not going to read them. But this is Collaborwalkie. This is the first one of 2024. And my name is Dave Pryor. I'm very excited to be hosting this interview. Jeffrey White is here. We're both members of Modus Institute, and we're going to talk all about using an Obeya to work with a whole team and see how all their work fits together, and also how members of the team use personal Kanban, and then how Jeffrey uses that to figure out what the next right thing to do is. So how all these pieces fit together. So thank you for making time in your afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me.
So before we get into it, would you mind telling these fine people a little bit about your background and why there's so many books on the bookshelf behind you?
Oh. Well, the books are because we bought a cool house that has a little study in it, so that's great. And yeah, we read a lot of books in our family. But again, my name's Jeffrey White. I direct career and life design at Hollins University, and have a career that in both higher education and other things. I direct a career program, and I have a very squirrely career myself, being a master's student in German literature when I was younger, then going to
highly employable.
Yeah, I mean, totally, because my next gig was in the printing industry, and I've worked in selling medical practice management systems in the '90s when like Windows seemed really new,
Okay.
and then moved on to managing a couple nonprofits, an arts council and a traffic safety nonprofit in Mississippi and Oregon.
Okay.
And teaching preschool, and then working back in higher education, both in teaching linguistics in German, and then running peer learning assistance program at the University of Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
And then in moving here to Virginia, where I'm actually now director of career and life design.
So what is career and life design?
So career and life design is at Hollins University is really a program for students to help them develop career discernment, really, and then to give them skills or train them in skills and competencies that will help them land a first position upon graduation in a field that they want and like, rather than just a stopgap job. So we do different approaches with them. And the life design part is really getting them to think about what challenges in the world really resonate with them. And then from there, we can really work with them to build professional connections and then start a career.
And that seems to kind of line up with some of the stuff that we do at Modus. So some of the way we focus on things of making sure that you are creating the space you need to be able to do what you want to do, and do the things that with people that are interested in doing it together, instead of just forcing yourself through the meat grinder of day-to-day work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the students often come with the misconception that all they have to do is send out resumes, which is in itself kind of a meat grinder.
Maybe it used to be, but now with ChatGPT, not so much.
Right, maybe, yeah. But then it's sort of a meat grinder leading to a black hole, because you don't hear any answers often. So especially if you don't have much experience in the field, you're new. So we really need to work with them to make connections and use those connections to find their way.
I think that's awesome. I wish they had that when I went to school.
Me too.
Would have made things a lot easier. So we were kind of posting back and forth on a message board about prioritization in Modus Institute, and you had said some things about how you used your Obeya with your team, and I wanted to get your sort of take on what an Obeya is. What does it mean to you?
So for me, what Obeya me is essentially a space, whether physical or digital. In our case, it's digital, where we can actually use visualization tools to see what's going on. I mean, what's happening? I mean, it's a basic human question. What's happening? And if we don't have that, then we're kind of lost and siloed and don't know, and may have duplication, just inefficiencies, and really just less community and less collaboration, which, as members of Modus, we're into collaboration and team effectiveness. It's what one of the main things is driving us.
Yeah.
So I have a team of 3 plus well, a team of two others, and then I have student employees who are at a university. So we're all on the Obeya,
Okay.
including the student employees, which I think is great because, again, I wish they had this when I was
Yeah.
in college, like Miro and Obeya. Wow, that would be
Yeah.
cool. But so basically, it allows us to use a variety of visualization tools. In our case, it's kind of DIY looking, as we'll show in a few minutes. In that we have a lot going on, bits and pieces, but when you are building it yourself, you know where to go. Miro always reminds me, and Obeya itself reminds me a little bit of a old kind of paper city map.
Sure.
Looking down at it. I look at these frames in Miro kind of like buildings or
Okay.
blocks, and I know where to go.
And each
So
person's got their own building, and then you have sort of the community areas where you're all working together.
yeah, now the good thing is you can see in all the buildings.
Okay. So are you all looking at, I mean, Jim tells the story about Turner where everybody's in the room together. Are you all looking at the Obeya together at the same time, or is everybody just kind of jumping in and out whenever they need?
So it's both. It's
Okay.
both. So, for example, this afternoon we had a meeting with my two other professional staff, and we were in the Obeya. And we
Okay.
were in a part of the Obeya that is about planning for this event that's in March.
Okay.
And we could go there. We have pictures of different meetings, lean coffees, and other activity related to this event. We can go there. We are all on the same page because we're in the Obeya.
Literally
we're
on the
talking
same
and
page.
we're modifying it as we're going along. So in this case, we needed to fill in a couple areas that still needed some, basically the breakout sessions. And then we needed to identify certain people, and so we're putting post-its on top of photographs, which I think is kind of
Okay.
cool, and then building it out, and then kind of ending it by making sure we grouped everything together in Miro so it doesn't go all kinds of directions if somebody
Yeah.
moves something, and then from there we know what we're doing. We've got a record of it. We can always go back to it, alone if we need to. As you'll see when I show you, we have our personal Kanban boards there. I have a story to tell about that after, once we get there, an update. And then we have what we call our 6-week cycle plans,
Okay.
which I'll show as well.
Okay.
And we have
So
many other things too.
okay, so just for the folks that are not familiar with an Obeya, if you could picture like before the pandemic, when people worked in an office together, sometimes you'd have like a war room or a room where the whole team would collaborate and stuff would be up on the walls. And it's basically like a digital version of that with varying levels of depth. Like you could have your own personal section plus everything else. And it does tend to get kind of messy, but that's not really a bad thing because that's how you're working. And you can just move to another part of the board and start a new section whenever you need to.
Right.
Cool. Would you be able to walk us through some of it?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share here. So anyway, this is at less than 1% zoom on my Miro of our Obeya. It's you're seeing part of it right now. And what I can do is here move around so you can kind of see the reach of it. There's a lot over here. And let me just explain what these quadrants are all about. So if I zoom in, you can see that, yes, it's a plan, do,
Wow, nice.
study, check, and adjust
Cool.
quadrant. So where we all go every day is to the personal Kanban. This
Okay.
is mine right here.
And you've bedazzled it with all your own favorite pictures and stuff
I
like
have.
that.
If I had glitter, I'd put that on too.
I always feel like it's the inside of your high school locker.
There you go.
Pictures of your favorite bands or whatever in there. But for people that aren't familiar, I think that's a big part of owning your work and owning your space is you make it not just have your work, but you make it work for you.
Right. And there are all kinds. I have these, speech balloons up at the top to kind of inspire. This is a variation on maybe what one might consider a standard Obeya, if there is such a thing, because I have these program and project swim lanes to the left. And from there, I go to options.
So
Then to
you're so how do you tell the difference? Are you thinking of program and project sort of at the same level of view there, or are they like subbed underneath one another? Like, how do you know which is if it's a program or a project? Just for the project managers that are watching.
oh right, yes, oh yes, and I am not a project manager by the way, but I wish I was.
No, you don't.
So um, so basically, um, how do you tell? Yeah, well, so C3 right here.
Yeah.
This is really a program,
Okay.
basically events.
A bunch
It's
of events.
career connection event, a career connection conference is what it started out as.
Okay.
So within that program, there are various projects: a fall conference and a spring conference. I guess you could divide it up. And so right now we're working on the spring.
Okay.
Um, the mm, 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 mm. The Institute for Liberal Arts, Social Capital, and Social Mobility is a big project. This hasn't
Okay.
really started yet. The some of these are more. I wouldn't even call them programs or projects. They're really just
Stuff that has to
areas
get done.
of where I'm working. I mean, planning and assessment plus fiscal matters,
Okay.
right? So that's you know, budgeting and planning go together.
Right.
Uh, Assessing the outcomes of your plan, what you did goes together. So they're all kind of in that one swim lane. And then, team collaboration, humane environments is really a cultural thing. So maybe my heading should be different, not programming project swim lanes, but that's why I have it right now.
Okay. And one of the things about this that I think is really cool for the project managers out there is you're able to look at all of these different work streams all in one place
Yeah.
and pick like figure out whether one thing is more important than another or one thing's in trouble or not by
Hmm.
looking at them all together at the same time in the same place.
Yes. I mean, without this, so in the days before this, I'd have notebooks.
Yeah. Post-its.
I would have, maybe a my hard drive, a shared drive, maybe, and people mumbling back and forth.
Yeah. So this lets you put it all in one place. Okay. So in
Yeah.
the options column, what level of granularity are the things that you have
Well,
in
let's
there?
go take a look here. What I got. Um, so this is, we have. I try to keep the option task as tasks, not, making sure that the ticket is not a bunch of other things.
Okay.
And that's when I was first doing personal Kanban. I noticed my tickets were it was just like a nesting doll.
Uh-huh.
There was a task and a task and a task and a task.
Yeah.
So, so I try to do that. Now, this one right here, apply decision sprint framework to Chev grant by 11/29. Well, that didn't happen. Obviously,
Okay.
this needs to be revisited. So, but and is not a task. That's actually a project. That in itself is a project,
Okay.
and that shouldn't have been there, right? So I slipped that in somehow, and that's always I think a temptation,
Yeah, but
right?
and for the people that are, this is I think always important to say when stuff like that happens, it's not bad. It's a thing that happened, and
Uh-huh.
then you can be curious about it. Why did it
Yeah,
happen? You know?
I was working with a consultant once back in the Arts Council days, and who said, "Well, that's a finding," and well, that's a great phrase. It's
So
a
I was
finding.
gonna. Oh, go ahead.
It's just a finding. Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, I
I
was
got
gonna
you.
save one question till the end, but I think I'm gonna ask it now because of where we are.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the people that I teach when I'm teaching my classes, I teach them about a definition of ready, which is how do you know that a piece of work is in a state where a team could consume it? Now, you talked about making sure these are actual tasks. So, how did you come up with your version of a definition of ready? Like, how do you know if a task is really just a task?
How do you know if a task is just a
If
task?
it's not like a whole project or a whole bunch of things.
Well, I think you can look at it just linguistically,
Okay.
right? I mean, gosh, I mean, this one, create SharePoint folder on Moodle for design thinking participant files. Well,
Pretty
that's
clear. Yeah.
pretty clear, right? I think, you know, if it's, you know, a verb, one verb, not many,
Right.
and a direct object that is, you know, fairly singular and granular enough,
Yeah.
it's not a project. I think,
Well, if somebody had something like do taxes or grade papers, that would be more than one thing.
right, right. So, I mean, when I have to do taxes, I mean, on my personal Kanban, which I also have in Miro, I mean,
Okay.
I have a ticket, you know, uh, purchase HR block software for tax year 23.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
that's my first step of doing one of my first steps. Gather papers.
So you'll decompose that when it becomes time to work on it.
Yeah. So, you know, doing taxes is the project.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Now you just mentioned your own personal. So you got your personal Kanban for work stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then one for your own personal stuff you keep elsewhere.
Yes, I do. I have that, you know, in a separate account.
Because that
Um,
that's
I,
one thing I think people have questions about if you're going to do PK at work is like how much of my own personal life do I want to let bleed into my work board?
yeah. So none of my personal stuff's on this one.
Okay.
Right. So I have a separate Miro account where I have, it's kind of I call it my weekend Kanban.
Okay.
Right. Um, and although may have things that aren't just weekend, and I've actually used the same setup with the swim
Okay.
lanes because I found that if I didn't, everything was getting kind of blurry,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I can't see, you know, the big parts.
Yeah.
It's all this bunch of tickets otherwise. If
Okay.
it's just an options column.
Now you've got a lot of bizarre stuff in your ready and doing column. You got tomato pictures. You got scooters, and is that Buster Keaton in there or something
It's
like that?
Buster Keaton. Yeah.
Okay. So what's going and some German. So what's going on in there?
So the Buster Keaton is just a visual representation of being interrupted, I guess. But there we go. And this here is something that I'm doing. It's actually not a single interruption, but it was something I was requested to do. It's actually I'm facilitating a design thinking process for an online module
Okay.
over 12 days with students in January. And that's at Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But it's like a big interruption to my work as a director of career and life
Yeah.
design. So I put it there just to remind me, you know, that it is kind of an interruption.
Going
Don't
to
get
hijack you for a while.
too immersed in it in a
So
way.
you're planning for that interruption to occur.
I know that interruption is going to be there now.
Awesome.
Now, if you go up here, you'll see my whip limit's 3. So there you go.
Okay.
Right now, do I always obey my whip limit? No,
Oh.
it happens. But Buster Keaton's here to remind me that, you know, when I'm being interrupted.
Okay.
The Lambretta motor scooter, which I did used to have a Lambretta motor scooter
Wow.
like this when I back
You
in
were a mod?
the mid 80s.
Okay.
All right. This is actually a link that's going to take me to a 6-week cycle that I'll show you later.
Okay.
And then I've taken down here, you know, I really enjoyed the me prioritization class in Modus Institute.
Okay.
It was one of the first ones I did. So I took some of these filters that Jim Benson
Oh
talks
yeah, the
about,
quadrants. Yeah.
the quadrants. Some are not. I think the alignment and autonomy is not one that he has in me prioritization, but I think it did come up somewhere, maybe another video.
Okay.
So I did use these. These are sort of visual reminders. I can take a look at my ready and my doing or my options and kind of play around and put things in here if I want.
Now, do you take things and try them out in multiple different boxes to see like if I prioritize this way, this is what's more important. If I put it over here, this is more important.
Normally, I use this just as a cue.
Okay.
I'm not dragging things down and doing that. I have a couple times. I haven't gone from like filter to filter to filter. It's kind of cool to think of it that way, though. So you're inspiring me, Dave, to really see how does this feel, how does it play out. If I do, if I'm trying to define, what's going to go to ready
Yeah.
for my options. If I'm in the ready, and doing, what goes first. What's where am I going to need help? Where
Okay.
there may take time for me to get that help. So maybe I need to send the email first and do it later.
Okay.
So, but usually this is more of a visual cue for me to be thinking about this in this manner.
Okay.
And then
Your tomatoes.
my tomatoes are just reminders to think about if I'm procrastinating to do Pomodoro technique, which is taking the
Okay.
25 minutes to work on something intense focus, setting a goal, work for 25 minutes, and then assess where do we go from here. Maybe I continue, maybe I do another Pomodoro, maybe I just stop, maybe I work on it for an hour.
So you're using Pomodoro as a technique to break the logjam of procrastination.
Yeah, so it's a
Okay.
cue. So if I find myself like fretting, what do I do? I might just pick one and do a Pomodoro.
Okay.
It's a 25-minute investment, and
And that's kind of what Tony Ann was talking about in the message board too, about how when she's not motivated, she'll just pick something she can get started with to get that boost so you have the motivation to carry forward.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And I started using Pomodoro back in University of Portland. I would train students to use it
Wow.
for their own learning.
Okay.
Because students will wonder, what do I do? What do I do? And so I would train tutors to train students to use it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. You got your pen, which is stuff that's being held, right? Or that you're waiting for stuff on, right?
Yeah, and pen is interesting. That sometimes things sit there that I need to move on too long, longer than I want.
Okay.
And I mean, we see here, 12 December 1st, this has actually been done
Okay.
right here. So I actually could
You could move that over.
move it over.
Well, how do you track item H? Are you putting dates on everything?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. It's just when I feel that a date is needed,
Okay.
that there's going to be, if I don't have the date, that I'm going to miss something.
Yeah.
Now, when we get to the 6-week cycles, you will also see dates in the table
Right.
that help to organize, when things need to be done
Okay.
as well. So, and then I have the, done, but let's talk about it, and then move to done book, which is over here. This is a done
So
book.
what does done book do for you? I'm curious to hear how this helps you.
Done book. So I think it was it Tim? Did you do a video with Tim Nolan on this?
Tim did one, and then Thashanthan did one that was like just.
So this is the done book from before the new year. I copied my Obeya before I started filling this one in this week.
Okay.
But or was that last week? But because we're working on a copy of the Obeya.
Okay.
So the done book basically helps me to one, to see what I'm getting done what day.
Okay.
I can see the black is always meetings.
Okay.
So I can kind of visually see, oh, wow, look at all these meetings here. They didn't even fit.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy, Monday was a horrible day. And then I have several done books together,
And when you come back, do you come back and look at it and kind of reflect on it and see what it's trying to teach you, or is it just
not
keeping
as
a
much as
record?
I'd like. And part of that, Dave, I think is still working to reduce what I would call just overload.
Uh-huh.
In higher education, because things can be, just in general in higher education, things can be very siloed. You can get
Yeah.
requests coming from all corners. And some of those requests have certain, well, I guess
Weights.
there's certain politics
Mm-hmm.
can be involved. So you need to somehow navigate what to do when for whom, and at the same time have your own stuff. So I don't get to that as much as I'd like. So the one thing that I find here visually that does help is one, looking at the meeting data, which I can kind of see right here, the black, and then also seeing when I had very was doing a lot of stuff, and when it was more spread out.
Okay.
But I don't do enough analysis. I would like to.
Okay.
And I think this is something that goes back to what's in this part of the personal Kanban right here is, team collaboration in humane environments.
Yeah.
If we're overloaded, we're not in a humane environment.
Right.
And so I'm still not quite there yet, where I can
Okay.
work, reflect, scratch my chin, and read a book, and get things done.
So what is the problem that personal Kanban is solving for you at work right now, or what is the thing that you're kind of investigating or chasing after to understand better?
I think what personal Kanban is doing for me right now is allowing me to watch what I'm doing.
Okay. Better awareness of what's going on.
Better awareness, better situational awareness, and watch how I'm saying yes too much.
Yeah.
And so it's teaching me that I need to say no. I need to take seriously, my own fragmentation that can happen in a workplace.
Okay.
Right, the fracturing.
Yeah.
Of the, I don't know, fracturing of the mind that can happen because there are too many things going on at the same time.
Okay.
And too many people requesting too many things. I mean, that's not unusual in workspaces.
Yeah.
And so it helps me to see that now. One thing that we're trying to do within my own career in life design with my staff is to say, okay, what if we, were to be more mindful of how much we're doing, so that we can do something like we take an hour a day and we do read.
Okay. So that leads me to the next question. Do the other people that you work with, are they able to see how loaded up you are? Because I know that's one of the things Jim talks about in the videos is if the manager can see how much work is on the person's plate, maybe they're less inclined to interrupt them or ask them to do anything.
So only the people who report to me see how much I'm doing.
But not the people upstairs. The people asking you don't get to see, but the people who you are asking get to see.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Okay.
But I think the good thing is that if I want to talk to the person I report to about why I'm saying no,
you've got evidence.
I can say, let me just look at my Kanban board in my 6-week cycle here and tell you why I'm saying no.
Okay. Now, did the other people on the team, the people that report to you, are their Kanbans different than yours? Or
they're very different, and they're used in sort of varying levels of success in some ways, I would say. So we talked, I think, about a month ago about doing this meeting here today. And in the meantime, I found out that this Kanban board is actually really old. I was so busy, I wasn't really checking in on it. Okay. And so this one's not being used.
Okay.
And we had to talk about it, and we're continuing our conversation about how we, what other ways might we do some sort of visual management so I can check in and see what you're doing rather than it being in a notebook.
Or
Uh,
you interrupting somebody in the middle of their work.
right. Yes, exactly. And then this one is, I think, semi active. There's some old stuff here,
Yeah.
and this is a newer employee, so there's still, I think, also more training for me to do.
Okay.
So in our own workplace culture, I think we have an opportunity for a conversation on, how do we want to visualize our work. I'm using the personal Kanban. The other two have in varying ways use personal Kanban. I will say the person who is not using their personal Kanban right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, when they started, were much more enthusiastic about it. So we just need to understand more. What
Why?
happened, and
Yeah.
there may be ways to re-enliven the Kanban. Maybe if they did sort of the swim lane approach, for example, that
Mm-hmm.
might help. And so, but there was a time where we were all using personal Kanban,
Okay.
including student employees. But this you can see is summer.
Mm-hmm.
So one consequence of taking on a lot of things come August, September, and having somewhat of an overload is the student employee Kanban board kind of broke down, in part because we lost our summer employees. And so we didn't
Ah.
really train the fall employees on using Kanban.
Okay.
So, human organizations can be difficult, can't they?
Yeah, so they're brought into an organization where everybody's been taught to use the system and is expected to use it, but they did not get to. And they're only there for a short time. Maybe there's, it's not always worth it to take the time, but they're not getting up to speed on this system.
Right. And then they're not too much in the student employees starting from the fall are not a lot often in the Obeya
Okay.
right now. So summer is a calmer period in our office, and we
Okay.
were able to have really full engagement of the student employees in the Kanban, in the personal Kanban for student employees, and then in the Obeya in general.
So if somebody's going to apply for a gig working with you, summer's when they want to do
Yeah, yeah. If you really want to learn Obeya,
it.
the
Okay.
way we do it, at least. I mean, there's many ways to do it, but
All
yeah,
right.
come and it
Cool.
pays better actually too.
Well, can we look at or where do you want to go next? I'll let you guide us. Where should we go next?
So let's go back to my personal Kanban real quick, and then we'll fly over to a 6 week
Okay.
cycle. So you'll notice again the Lambretta SX200 scooter from probably 1968, 7.
What were you listening to when you were riding around in the Lambretta?
I was actually riding down High Street in Columbus, Ohio, past Hog Heaven, which was the Harley place, and just sort of waving at people
Giving them the finger.
and hoping they didn't chase me.
Yeah. Like a
Um,
scene out of Quadrophenia.
yeah, it was kind of that vibe a little bit. So let's, if I click here, we can go to the 6 week plans, and I'll go to this. This
So for
is
those who don't know what just happened, you can put hyperlinks in Miro that lead you to other places in Miro.
That's right. I call them my wormholes, right? So go back, go
Okay.
back. Okay. So anyway, um, so these are a set of what we call our 6 week cycles, and it's inspired by the folks at Base Camp, and when they talk about doing things in 6 week cycles, I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I'll try it out.
Okay.
So we have here. Um, this is for that conference I was talking about, this spring conference.
Okay.
And if we zoom in, I've covered up names except for my own.
Okay.
So we have here with the 6 week cycles, I just call it higher order parts. Could be projects. It could be just something that's going to require more discernment
Uh-huh.
and conversations.
But streams of work within the actual creation of the event.
Right.
Okay.
And then we have here, you'd see the names of the lead for those particular parts. I'm the lead for this one,
So you're
right?
working like racy elements into your Kanban board.
So yeah, like I said, I don't speak your language always,
Oh,
Dave.
sorry. Sorry. You're working into your board information that lets folks know who is the point person, who are the people that have to be informed about it,
Yeah.
who's all involved with this stream of work.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'll try to limit my PM
That's
speak.
okay. No, that's okay. I want. So, what was the term you used?
RACI. It's an acronym, and I don't even know what it stands for.
Okay,
The
I have
first
to
one
look
is
it up.
responsible.
Okay.
I think it's if I say it, I'm going to get it wrong. So I'm
Okay.
just going to
I'll
go.
look it up later.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have here, week increments, and then sort of within a 2 week sort of box of time here. I'm not an agilist, but I'm going ahead and using the term sprint.
Okay.
First sprint, second sprint, third sprint. But it's not agile. So
You're doing a 6 week time box and breaking it up into individual weeks. So
yeah,
week-long sprints. I mean, that totally fits. That works.
yeah.
Okay.
And then right now we are, I think, right here.
Okay.
So this is the stuff that's happening now. Let's see. We should actually be using tags to.
Yeah. What are the tags I wanted to ask about?
Well,
Okay,
there's
that's
a
the
done
status.
tag,
Okay.
but I noticed that we're still trying to get consistent with this, so I can see that we need to go back and tag things as done or not.
Okay.
Some tags might have people's names on them,
And you've
and
got goals and objectives. I noticed in these different boxes too.
yeah. So
How do you differentiate between the two?
well, the goals would be the objectives would be shorter term, more narrow.
Okay.
The goals would be, so for example, the goal here for this one is we have a compelling theme,
Okay.
but here the objective is we've narrowed down to one final theme.
Okay.
We have one now. We
Okay.
have one final theme. I don't know why it says, I think this is actually supposed to be 3 themes.
Okay.
And then we narrowed down to one. So that would be a difference.
But that's a way of you creating alignment with you and the other people that are working on this.
Yeah.
So that you all know this is why we're doing these things in this time box.
Yeah, and we can have conversations. Now, we didn't get to all the goals, you can see, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, this gets at people being very busy and not filling everything out. And the 6-week plan is not totally done.
But even the fact that there's blank spaces there is very informative as well, because it tells you we didn't get to this, and then you can ask the question, okay, why? Do we not need this? Do we not have time to do it? Like, what's the driver for this thing not happening?
Right. I mean, it's not like you have to fill in every cell, right?
Yeah.
You might not need it. So
okay, so that was one of the things I was going to ask. So you are using this as a system to help you get work done, but not a system that people are required to follow to the letter at the expense of getting work done.
it's true. Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is a construct, right?
Yeah.
If we find that the construct and reality are not gelling, we have to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
But we're not, totally chained to the construct.
Right.
Around the week of the 22nd, we will take that week to plan the next 6 weeks
Okay.
out. And actually, probably even next week we'll start that, because again, this is our first 6-week cycle that started in November.
Yeah.
We took a break because we did have shutdown for the holidays.
Okay.
So we're going to see, how long it really takes for us to do the next, 6 weeks. But I think it's very helpful for us to have these plans in these 6 week cycles because we know what's coming up,
Yeah.
and everybody knows what's coming up. And we can go when we have a meeting, we can go to the 6 week plan and say, okay, well, what are we doing here, here, and here? And again, as we're trying to reduce overload, when we put all our 6 week plans together, we might go, oh, wow, what are we doing to ourselves?
Yeah.
We need to change
Well,
how we plan the next 6 weeks, or maybe how we plan the next year, because it's going to be a finding
yeah.
that we're doing too much.
I want to comment on something you said a minute ago. So, and describe what I see. We were talking before we started recording about the differences between higher ed and some IT stuff. So, a lot of the teams that I work with, they have they'll do a quarterly plan, and that last week or two is supposed to be getting ready for the next quarter. But they've always jammed so much work into the quarter that they spend the last couple of weeks just trying to scramble and get as much done as they can, that they never plan the
Mm-hmm.
next quarter until they start the next quarter, when they finish the work from the previous quarter, and then a couple weeks in plan that quarter, even
Mm-hmm.
though they've already committed to a bunch of stuff. So I'm guessing
Right.
you're protecting the time to do that. You're making a conscious choice to save time so that you can plan the next 6 week time box.
Well, I would say that we are intending to protect that time. Now that you've reminded me of this, because I see this in higher ed too. What I am going to do
Yeah.
is, after our meeting, I'm going to go and protect the time.
Cool.
And by sending my two other professional staff, we're going to with a message saying let's agree on when we're going to block out time individually and as a group
Yeah.
to start thinking about 6 weeks, because I've seen this happen and I've done it,
Yeah.
right? Even for a whole fiscal year, you're in the fiscal year and like,
Yeah.
we're planning the fiscal year. That is not, I mean, that's common, but if you want to really think about planning, it's not planning. It's kind of like hustling and reacting, and yeah, maybe you
Yeah.
get a plan out of it.
So your
So,
plans, I'm assuming that they change. I mean, you have interrupt work, you have certain things that suddenly become a big deal. You have to make adjustments. How does that work its way into this stuff? Or is it maybe that's not a thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe you don't suddenly all have to deal with a thing that you weren't planning on having to deal with.
well, I mean, you. So what I do is I make decisions. Okay, what am I? I mean, if I have certain things. I mean, for example, when you have an event,
Mhm.
there is a point of no return. You have to do it,
Yeah.
right? And um, and then you have other things that you're working on, and other things are more higher priority. So those things that I wanted to get done, but maybe were a lower priority because of interruptions, now they have to wait in line.
Yeah.
And it could be that I find that, hey, I really didn't even have to do that. I had it
Okay.
on my, in my swim lane, or I had it as an option, but it turns out that the way it shook out,
Yeah, it
maybe it
wasn't.
just goes into sort of the neglect pile.
Okay. So I have one sort of big overarching question
Mm-hmm.
for you with all this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you commented on was that you use this to figure out your priorities. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how, looking at all of this, that it helps you figure out what the next right thing to do is.
So I think that, one, it is a reference,
Okay.
right? So, for example, if I go so we're working on a podcast, and I have here reference points.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this is in a Kanban, some of it's not. So that's one way it helps me. Another way that the Obeya itself helps me is we have, let me go up here. There it is. So I have
Oh, I'm glad that you got to this. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to work this in. Go ahead.
So we have this sort of a history of notes,
Mm-hmm.
and
From meetings you've done in a room together, you're
yeah,
uploading pictures of it so that, again, just for the folks that aren't familiar with Obey, it's like everything you need is all in one place, and you can make decisions together about
right.
what to do.
So, for example, these two boards are from a focus group of students.
Okay.
So, if I need a reminder, well, what kinds of sessions were the students really wanting? Well, here you go. They're all right
Okay.
there,
Yeah.
right? And so, and then actually, a colleague of mine transcribed it all into tickets
Oh,
like
wow.
this. Um, and then we had, oh yeah, we did a retrospective
On the conference itself. Okay.
on the conference itself with people from another office that we were collaborating with. So, we can kind of look at what happened, what worked, what do we want to change,
Yeah.
sort of a plus delta kind of approach, and our thinking. So really, I mean, it's a way of making thinking visible.
Yeah. Well, and even though you're not a project manager, I will tell you that as a project manager who's addicted to historical documentation, that whole frame makes me very happy because you've got all that stuff saved just in case.
Yeah, and it's Miro, so it's infinite in a
Yeah.
way, right? Um, and another thing, we going back to the structure, the
Yeah.
basic structure again, the plan, do, study, adjust,
Yep.
which Jim talks about. We are able to. This was a summer project looking at this notion of the 2-hour job search. It's a book by Steve Dawson, I think is his name.
Okay.
And we were very interested in that. We will be studying the notion of good service. So Lou Down has a book called, I think, Good
Huh.
Service. And so it, how do you design good services?
So this is not just you using this quadrant for studying how we're working, but this is you and your team planning things we want to investigate together.
Yes, in order to improve.
Okay, that's really cool.
Right. Um, so, and then this is the adjust side. So there's not a lot in the adjust side. I think the main thing was from the summer
Okay.
where we worked on kind of a very simple layout here, which became sort of the inspiration for this. Well, another inspiration for the 6-week cycle. So my colleague and I took 4 weeks to totally revamp the website that the university had for our career and life design unit,
Okay.
and it was very outdated. And we really don't have control over it historically.
Okay.
But we wanted to make sure we could control it as much as possible. We thought at first in terms of sort of a minimum viable product.
Mm-hmm.
And we started in July and worked on different parts, had these goals here for, August 4th, August 11th. And then we
Sure.
start by August 11th, we've completed and reviewed draft outline of all the 4 main pages.
Okay.
And then a second 2-week, what we called sprint. We're not agilists. I don't want to say that. And really,
You might not be
by,
an agilist, but you're doing a pretty good job of it.
all right,
So,
well, that's cool. So we wanted to have a minimum viable product really by the end of 4 weeks where they're going to be happy with it and we're
yeah.
happy with it, but we know it's not complete. We haven't completed it. We were able to use this space to collect examples,
Yeah.
and so
And those are screenshots from the website or from websites that you want
various
to,
websites.
okay,
Yeah,
emulate. So it's almost like there's a Pinterest element to this as well.
yeah, Yeah,
Okay.
in a way, right? And other criteria and structure and whatnot. So
Yeah.
we were able to use this as a sort of a space where we are adjusting something
Hmm.
to make it far better, and we did, and
This
we
is
did it in
awesome.
3 weeks and not 4.
That's very cool. So
So
it's
we were very
helping you
happy
keep
about that.
organized and become more efficient at the same time.
What's that?
It's helping you keep organized and become more efficient in how you're getting the work done at the same time.
Absolutely, and it creates common spaces, and
How
that's really important.
how often are you in here updating stuff? Is it like a daily thing for you, or weekly, or
Oh,
what?
for me, it's daily.
Okay.
It's daily, and I'm in mainly the do and the plan
Okay.
quadrant.
Okay.
And for my colleagues, I would say it's often, I would say daily,
Okay.
because as you know, in Miro, you see their names floating across,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it seems like I see them every day.
Cool.
Mainly with the 6 week cycles now.
Okay.
And I, again, want to revisit with folks personal Kanban and, getting more, what do I want to say? I guess revisiting its possibilities
Okay.
and inspiring folks to, come back to being more consistent
Cool.
with that.
So can I ask you one last question about personal Kanban?
Absolutely.
How long have you been doing it? Oh, I guess it's two questions. How long have you been doing it?
So I came across personal Kanban. Oh, this is a good question. So I think I started reading about personal Kanban and seeing things online back in 21,
Okay.
pandemic times.
Okay.
Um, and I would use Trello.
Okay.
And then I came here to Hollins, and I originally was an interim director because there was a loss of leadership in the organization,
Okay.
and I came in and kind of ran the show by myself while my colleague was on maternity leave, and there was 2 people who left. So I
Okay.
had her basically work with me to put everything into a Microsoft Planner by time
Mm-hmm.
when it would be done and have files attached to the cards and everything. And then I had my own personal Kanban and planner. And I really didn't like using Trello and Planner because I always felt like they hid things.
Yeah.
And started using Miro, I think after, let's see, I think I joined Modus Institute 23, summer 22. I think it was before then that I was already could see some YouTube videos and things.
Okay.
And I started using Miro
To manage it.
in, what was it? Probably, spring of 22.
Okay. So the question I have, and I've been using it for a really long time, and I feel like I'm so far down the rabbit hole with it that I can't see back to the beginning. But
Mm.
how has assuming that you started using it to organize all the work that had to be done, how has what it does for you changed? Has it evolved? Is it still that same thing, or is there something else that it does for you now that you didn't expect it to do in the beginning?
Well, I mean, the big change is the evolution. There are 2 big changes. I think on the level of the personal Kanban is the evolution of the board over
Okay.
time. And so there's a big difference between starting off with, say, to do, doing done,
Yeah.
and,
What you have now.
having options ready, doing pen,
Yeah.
done, but let's talk about done, and then having the swim lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been this development over time that has allowed me to, see things better and be less crazed in
Okay.
my work,
Awesome.
right? And then when you add the Obeya, things have a greater context. So, for example, 6 week cycle tasks can be just copied and pasted from one, from a 6-week cycle frame to a Kanban really easily.
Okay, so it's easier to move stuff around in the same
So
space. Okay, that makes
yeah,
sense.
and so that happens, and then adding the done book was big, because otherwise you just end up with this graveyard of tickets.
Yeah.
Um, and
And even though
that's
you're not really digging into it now, the done book is data that you'll be able to access and sift through when you have the time to do it.
Yeah. So as I've said before, one thing we need to be doing is continue to work towards a more humane workplace, which means that we're not dealing with so much overload or any overload, and we have time to,
Breathe.
um, you know, read, to develop ourselves, maybe go fishing or something like that. And so, having the history will be helpful. And then, other changes, really, I think social personal Kanban. So the fact that there was a time, and we're going to try to get back to that, where my, two colleagues, especially the one who stopped using it, were more consistent daily using it. And I could actually, there was a time when I was, watching her Kanban, she could watch mine.
Okay.
But again, the fall was really busy, very busy. And I lost track.
Yeah.
She stops using it, and that's okay. It
Yeah.
just is. And it's just, like the question is, what's next,
Yep.
right?
This is great. I really appreciate you making time to walk through all this. If people want to get in touch with you with follow-up questions, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, people can reach me at my email. Well, if you're with Modus, through Modus
Okay.
Institute, my email is whitejs@hollins.edu. That's HOLLINS.edu.
Cool.
And LinkedIn
Okay.
as well. Look me up. I'm in Roanoke,
Yeah,
Virginia,
I'll
Hollins.
make sure we put links to all of it in the show notes.
Yeah. And so those are the ways they can get a hold of me. I'm happy to share and talk to anybody really about it. I think the great thing of having community around this is that we learn from each other and help each other.
Yeah, cool. Oh, one more. What advice, or what would you say to somebody who's considering joining Modus or thinking about it? Like, what have you gained from being a part of that community?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. So I think one thing that I've gained is it's a community of practice. Various practitioners, various fields. So one thing I've gained is just seeing that a lot of the struggles that I've had are across the board in
Okay.
various industries. And, you might be in higher education thinking, well, this is kind of organized anarchy, what's going on? And think everybody else has it more organized, but not necessarily
You don't.
so, right?
Or you might work at IT and see somebody in higher ed doing this and be like, damn, can we talk about that more?
Right. So, and then I think another thing is, just the training opportunities through the various learning modules.
Yeah.
I have the platinum subscription, so I work through those, and sometimes I revisit them.
So do you also find when you go back through them, you're like, wow, I didn't catch that the first time?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And then I think as well, the community. So we have the monthly lean coffees. There's the collaboration equation book group. So that's been great. Another Modus member, Aaron Hill, and I have been having just meetings several months in a row, just together talking about various things. And so that's been really nice.
Cool.
And then I think, one thing I'm thinking about is doing LAVM, the Lean Agile Visual Management. I need to talk to
That's
people
awesome.
about that, about the February cohort, and how much is actually involved.
It's
it's
a lot of work, but it's well worth it. Okay. Well worth it.
So, so I'm excited about, the possibility of doing that. And, And yeah, maybe someday I'll be a project manager. No,
No,
uh,
you don't want that.
no, I don't want that. Okay, okay. Maybe someday I'll be somebody who's not a project manager that just knows how to do a lot of stuff.
Cool.
How about that?
That's awesome. Well, thank you
Okay.
very much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Dave. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's great seeing you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Okay. Bye bye.